Today on the channel, we're going to be talking about 4 reasons the Monster is a Seiko legend. Now, I know there is a ton of variations of the Monster out there, but this is the Seiko Legend series, and we're going to be taking a look at 2 of the most legendary of them all, the first and second gen orange Monsters. Big thanks to my good friend Chris for lending these into the channel. I've owned a couple of different variations of the Monster, but I haven't had one in a while, so it was nice to get these in for a little bit of wrist time. Chris has lent in a whole bunch of different watches for us to take a look at together on the channel, which is really appreciated. If you happen to be on Instagram, let's return the favor and support him there at Seikoholic7. Give him a follow over there. So let's get into the Monsters. So I think it's important to do a quick overview of the watches first, and there's probably a number of comparison videos out there on these, and I won't go through all of the differences, but a couple of key ones, and one in particular that really affect the look is going to be the hour markers. For me, those tooth-shaped markers on the Gen 2 make the watch. Both are great watches, and you probably don't have the Gen 2 without the first gen leading the way. But to me, the Gen 2 is where a lot of people's mind go when they're talking Seiko Monsters. There's some other visual differences, but one you don't see is the movement upgrade on the Gen 2 to the 4R36 with hacking and hand winding. I measured both, and I'm getting the same dimensions with a case width of 42.5 millimeters. Lug to lug is 47.5 millimeters. Thickness is about 13 millimeters. The lug opening is 20 millimeters, and both watches have a water resist of 200 meters. That is the rundown on the watch. So let's talk about, in no particular order, the 4 reasons the Monster is a Seiko legend. Now, as we go through the list of reasons, I'm going to kind of focus in on the Gen 2. Again, both watches are awesome, but I personally prefer this one. In terms of design, the Monster is quite an unusual look for Seiko and for watches in general. It still takes some design cues from other Seiko divers with the way the bezel is partially shrouded at the top and the bottom of the watch, but it's definitely its own animal in the world of Seiko divers. I love that side profile and how the indentations on the case line up with the bezel. It kind of has the look of a revolver. The bottom line in terms of design for me that makes it so great is the fact that you do have that little touch of Seiko, but the watch really stands on its own when it comes to originality. Another great thing about these is their durability. A lot of the people that own these watches tend to wear them. Even these 2 I know are well worn and they tend to age well. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is the area of the case that protects the bezel that we were talking on earlier. It's going to protect that bezel, and even if the bezel takes a knock, the fact that it's solid steel, I find makes it hold up to that kind of punishment, but still look good. This one, if you get in really close, one little spot here is up by the one. There is a couple of dents, but they're barely noticeable. Another thing with the bezel is the way it angles down to the crystal. The crystal sits below the edge of the bezel, so it's got that buffer protecting it from scratches. So the shrouded area protects the bezel, and the crown too for that matter. Then the bezel protects the crystal, which keeps the watch looking good, but also functioning properly, making it a very durable and robust diver. We'll switch over to the first gen for this one, just to give you guys a look at this one too. It's deserving of a look for sure, but this is one of those watches that for me had zero appeal at first, and I think that might be the case for a lot of people before they try one. The very first time I saw one, I got it right away, though. A couple of things that surprised me with the watch and the wearability of the watch were, first of all, the size. I'm sure everyone is well aware for the most part now, but I was under the misconception that with the name the Monster, the watch would wear really big. Totally not true. It wears fantastic. I have a 7.25 inch wrist, but you can have a lot smaller wrist and totally pull it off. The short, stubby lugs definitely help with that. They're not only short, but they have that quick angle down to seat it comfortably on wrist. Secondly, I thought it might look a bit loud. It kind of is, but that's part of the fun with this watch. So I know I'm getting some double takes on this one, and it might seem a little crazy at first. These monsters have gone way up over the last few years, and I definitely wouldn't call them affordable today, but back when you could get these at a fraction of today's price, they were an absolute steal. I think that those early days were key in making the monster the legendary Seiko it is. I know of at least 3 people, and actually 2 are YouTubers now, and the monster was their entry into the world of watches, which I think is really cool. So back when these were affordable, I think these ended up on the wrists of a lot of people that maybe weren't watch people and became watch people because they were able to get such a great watch at such a good price. On wrist, it's one of those watches that has that fun factor. It's the overall look, plus the orange dial definitely adds to that too. I don't have the bracelets here, but I've always liked the look of them. They really add to the toolish style of these watches, but that said, they do look pretty darn good on straps too. Now, I know there's a bunch of other reasons that have propelled these into their legendary status. Maybe you're not a fan and this isn't a legend at all to you, but in my books, these are some of the coolest Seiko divers out there. So that's it, guys. If there's any other watches you'd like to see in the Seiko Legends series, let me know in the comments and I'd be happy to try and get that watch in to check out. Just now, I'm realizing I have not done a loom shot, which is not optional with the Seiko Diver video, so stick around and I'll put one in the outro. Huge thanks again to Chris for lending in the monsters. Thanks to you guys for stopping by. Be safe out there, and we'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.